You ready?
Yeah.
Three, two, one. Welcome to the Lightforge. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. The expansion is out. We got new cars. We got Dungeon Run. Hope you guys have been having fun.
We
We
got
have.
dungeon runs.
Pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff. You want to talk about it first?
I want to talk about dungeon run's impact on the arena, and I think this is the largest impact to the arena that we've had since the Frost Festival.
Ooh. Okay. So
It
what kind of impact are you talking about here?
All of the filthy casuals who have flocked back to Hearthstone in order to play it because of this new expansion thing. Not the diehards that play the game year round, but the people that like come and play for a few weeks and leave. None of them are in the arena right now, even though some of them were before. They're all playing dungeon runs. It's just such a good mode. It's incredibly fun. I've enjoyed every minute of it, and it's made the arena a lot harder than it usually is.
Hmm. That's interesting. Yeah, I guess I just haven't played enough Arena this week to really test it out. There are certainly some easy wins, but yeah, I haven't noticed like the typical bump in just
Yes,
sort of like coasting to 4-0, 5-0
exactly. Because
that
normally,
I'm used to.
whenever like if you've been around for a couple of expansion release cycles, you know when the expansion hits, things get easier really quickly, and they get extremely easy for the first week as people play Arena in order to play all the new cards, right? Like
Yeah,
that's what people play Arena for. And then it gets significantly harder and harder and harder, and then by like the last 2 weeks of the meta, it's like insanely difficult. Well, I'm not seeing the bump right now. Has Arena gotten easier from like the last 2 weeks? Maybe, but only by like a little. Like it hasn't been like 4 or 5 free wins, which it typically is.
right. And look, I'm not saying that you should be expecting the same difficulty that perhaps you were experiencing a few weeks back, right? Where right before an expansion, um, that's typically when it's the hardest because people are saving up their gold. Interest has waned, right? People
Mm-hmm.
are just sort of getting hyped up for the new expansion, and they're not going to be that excited to be playing Arena in the dying twilight hours of KFT. But so right now, certainly there are you can take advantage of the fact that there are meta considerations that not everyone might be aware of, so you can take advantage of that and get a high win rate. But yeah, I'm not sort of seeing the complete sort of walk in the park games that we might be used to.
Mm. Okay, so that was my way of talking about Dungeon Run. Now, do you want to talk about the actual Dungeon Run?
Sure, I, you know, I don't think there's so much to dissect here, rather than just say I am really freaking impressed by
Mm-hmm.
Blizzard adding in this mode, and it seems to have so much polish. It seems to have so much just replayability, right? I was
Yeah.
surprised by the replayability because when I saw it, I was like, all right, obviously they want you to replay this, but I was kind of questioning, like, how much replayability is there,
It's a
right?
roguelike. It should have insane replayability.
And it does. And there's even, it was revealed on Reddit like either yesterday or today. There are some levels which are rare levels that pop up. Um, it's not just the same few bosses. Like every 50 runs or so, you'll get like a very unique sort of encounter. And I won't
Interesting.
spoil it past that. But yeah. So it's very cool. Like if you keep on playing it, there are additional sort of interactions to figure out. And the bosses have really cool mechanics. You get really nice rewards. Like it actually feels like you're progressing.
Mm-hmm.
So
And the bosses are all unique in very unique ways, and they play the same like set of cards, and they do the same type of thing. So facing a boss a couple of times, a few times, like it makes you better at facing the boss the next time. But you get like shuffled. You don't get the same bosses all the time. So your actual like knowledge of the game does not progress at like a 1-to-1 ratio, right? So it puts a lot of playability in. It's a good roguelike.
yeah. So props to Blizzard for coming out with this mode. It seems like uh, they had to have spent a lot of time on the mode. So Yeah, really good idea by them. Just because this is something that helps with one of the issues that Blizzard has been struggling with, right? The fact that the game just freaking costs
Yeah,
way too much.
yeah, it's impossible for new players to get into.
Right. So how do you combat that? Like when someone logs in and someone wants to get into the game, previously, they could play Arena, but if they weren't Infinite, they basically had to pay. And if they didn't have many cars, they could go into casual mode, try to gain gold, but it's like pretty dejecting, right? When you just, you have Bloodfin Raptor and Shattered Sun, and then other people had, Highlander Priest playing that in casual, or Tempo Rogue. And yeah, the startup cost is really high. And just by having this, it eliminates sort of the nervousness people have about PvP. And, you don't need any cards. And you actually get to, this is really smart. You get to test out like the shiny, cool cards, right? You get to grab them and you're like, oh man, I really freaking like, this particular Death Knight, or I really freaking like this elemental package, right? I'm going to work towards this.
Right.
Great idea by Blizzard.
Yep. And so that's Dungeon Run. I don't know how much more we're going to talk about Dungeon Run on the Lightforge. We're still an Arena podcast. It's kind of weird, right? Because I think of ourselves I don't think of ourselves as necessarily Arena players, but like limited format players. Because we, I don't know. I really like roguelikes. I like Diablo 2. Like, it doesn't matter what kind of roguelike it is. I'm going to like it if it's done well. And Arena is kind of like that to me. Yeah, there's a human on the other side, but I don't care that there's a human on the other side, It could just be like a really good computer and I would get the same amount of like joy from it. Although humans are a little less exploitable usually. So it's kind of weird that Dungeon Run's in a weird place where for some reason they implemented like a single player like limited because it's a limited format, you don't get to build your deck. You get offered random stuff that you get to pick. It's very much a limited format. We can tweak our algorithm to like actually make it work for it once we know information about all the bosses and all their cards and stuff like that. So it's definitely within the realm of limited play, but it's also single player. It's not that hard. And so I don't know how much coverage we're going to be doing of Dungeon Run. But definitely, especially if you like the Arena, I think you're really going to like Dungeon Run. And if you're one of those people who either, only play Arena and nothing else, or who are not even playing Hearthstone right now and just still listening to our podcast, and I know some of you are out there, get back into Hearthstone if only to play these free dungeon runs. They are insanely fun. They will not cost you a dime. They will not give you anything either, but they will not cost you a dime, and it'll be a great time. And if you enjoy it, maybe get back into the Arena after that. Because Arena, as we're about to go into, is actually in a really good place right now. If you want, you can go check out the video that I made outlining what this meta is going to be like. And I think I'm mostly right about things, but I'm a little bit wrong. And I'm a little bit wrong because of the one thing that's really the center of, I think, all the times when I'm making meta predictions that I am like a little bit wrong on. And it's annoying, but that is that Blizzard has certain offering odds on their cards that they tell us.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
They have certain offering odds, and they even released it in the patch notes right before this expansion. Like, there's a certain expectations of patch notes. This isn't something that like we're making up right now. Like, it's not like we think that these should be the offering odds. We kind of care what the offering odds are, but really Blizzard's the boss, right? They tell us what the offering odds should be, and then we play with these expectations, right? We evaluate cards with these expectations. We evaluate the meta with these expectations. And they told us. And what the information they told us in the patch notes this time was the same as it always has been, but this time actually using the correct math. Before it was like plus 100% when they really meant 2x, which doesn't work the same way when you stack them. Like if you 2x something and then 2x something again, you get 4x. But if you plus 100% and then you plus 100% again, you get plus 200% or 3x. So Blizzard used to use the plus 100%, plus 75%, plus whatever percent system when they actually meant to double or to 1.5 times it or something. So now they're using the correct math at least in their descriptions. And then they said they fixed the errors which were causing the offering rates to be wrong in KFT. Because if you remember, if you've been tuning into the Lightforge throughout KFT, you know that we knew and everyone knew, and articles and people were writing about it. And they were looking at HS replay stats and all that. It was just all wrong in weird ways. You couldn't really pinpoint how it was wrong, but it was wrong. It was not what people were saying. And to no one's surprise, I think it's still wrong. They said they fixed it, but they didn't. Just to give an example of it, this is from HS Replay Stats, and Taro provided them. There's also a post on Reddit about it. Eviscerate is being offered right now in Rogue fewer times than Call of the Wild is being offered in Hunter. Eviscerate is a basic, common Rogue card, and Call of the Wild is an epic Hunter card. So Call of the Wild should be offered literally half the time that Eviscerate's being offered. So that's not right. We don't know what's happening there. There's suspicion that it's the micro adjusts that Blizzard has been talking about, but micro adjusts are only supposed to be up to 5%. If micro adjusts are now up to 100%, or to minus 50%, or to or to add 100% or something like that, or some combination, right? Minus 25% on one card and plus 50% on another card. That's way more than 10%. Not even a little bit more than 10%.
Right. And it sort of because part of the reason they say you don't need to know these specific adjusts was because they're micro, right? They're micro. They should not be impacting your decision. They will not be impacting your decision on any level. I mean, they do. This is sort of...
Yeah.
Right.
They normally do, even if it's 10%. And Blizzard said 5%. Right. But then they eventually said 10% a month later. So I'm using 10% to give them the benefit of the doubt. Right. But when you're talking about Eviscerate being offered less frequently than Call of the Wild, that changes everything. How you face hunters, how you face rogues, how you it's all different. We're not gonna go down this rabbit hole again.
There's not much more to say.
Yeah, there's not much more to say. I wouldn't even say we're disappointed in Blizzard. I'm not disappointed. I expected this to happen, and it happened. So the expectations have been properly set, and they are following their very low expectations that everyone has for them. And more than that, that's not the only thing that's the problem. K and C cards, you know how they're supposed to get a plus 100%, a 2x bonus, a double the set bonus? Well, they're getting it, except for certain cards, such as all the neutral commons. Just saying. If you're ever wondering why you're not seeing that many basilisks, it's not that people decided to not take the best neutral card being offered right now. It's because it's not showing up. It's showing up about as often as Bone Mare and Primordial Drake. And is that good information to know if you're playing in this meta? Yeah, it's ridiculously good information. It changes how good cards such as...
Scorpiomatic?
Yeah, Scorpiomatic is, because that card is kind of designed to kill basilisks. That's the highest value proposition.
It definitely is. So yeah, this is one of those things. And we have gotten answers from Blizzard before. When confronted with this, Blizzard basically just says these are the offering rates as we know them, sort of. Not exact words, but we're at a point in which this is basically it. We see that there's something wrong, and I think Taro has tried to sort of connect the dots together, but we quickly realized no. I don't think you can connect the dots here, but you can just basically see something is just not working. We want Blizzard to tell us the rules. I think their biggest problem right now is not that they're not telling us the rules, it's that they don't know the rules. They know what rules they want the system to have, but the reality is they have not implemented those rules for the last 6 months, more than 6 months in the arena. Yep.
So kind of a communication problem, but also just get your shit together, Blizzard problem overall. You guys know, they know this is not an issue that we're bringing up for the first time anymore. They are fully well aware that their internal system is messed up. And just, I don't know, it's been a while, right? We're hoping it would be fixed by now, and we have a nice expansion where we kind of sort of know what's going on, and we don't. That's fine. Nothing we can do about it. We're not Blizzard. We can't control their offering odds, or to even make the offering odds the same as what they say that it should be. So for now, just know that if you think Hunter's really powerful, it is. Why? Some weird offering odds reasons. If you think Rogue is sucking right now, it's doing much worse than we expected it to. Why? Because of some weird offering odds thing.
Right. Also, this is kind of funny, right? I remember on our stream, I believe it was Friday, someone in the chat was like, "Hey, have you guys noticed? I'm not seeing basilisks as often as I thought I would." And I'm just like, I mean, I don't know. My sample size is small, and in my head, I'm just like, you know, you are probably just not seeing the correct amount. But then, also in the back of my head, I'm like, that could also be true. And then here, you know, it seems like there's a decent chance.
There's a pretty big sample size when it comes
right.
to like neutral commons that are popular, right? Like
Right,
that's not
right.
like one card in one class. That's a
Right.
card that's offered in. It's supposed to be offered in a whole lot of drafts, and it is not offered in that many drafts.
So yeah, and once again, the doubt that it creates for everything is pretty uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But
Like, so I say things like, oh, it's kind of a vanilla meta because not a lot of the common or rare neutral cards in this set do anything, like with initiative on the board. And that's true, but when you have the offering odds of all the current set cards that you're supposed to have, that's true like 50% of what I was saying, you know? So the effect of what I was saying has been 50%ed, and that's a much softer statement then that I would be making about the meta.
yep.
Anyway, that's the offering odds update. It's kind of sad that we have to give the offering odds update every time, but we do because it's what's been happening. All right, let's go into the meat of this now. As we mentioned this before, so this Lightforge is going to focus on the neutral cards because we've went over most of the important, like almost all of the important meta-changing class cards in the prior Lightforge. Because they were, you know, very important and we already knew all of them. But the neutral cards were not really revealed, especially not the neutral commons. They were not really revealed until the card dump, which happened after the previous Lightforge. So we're going to do a card-by-card review of the neutrals, and hopefully Blizzard will fix their offering odds problem quickly enough. I'm sure they've been notified of this issue by now. And hopefully the meta will swing more towards these cards than it is right now. But before we get there, there's one class that hasn't really been covered as well as the other classes because there's been a lot of cards that weren't revealed, and we found out why they weren't revealed. It's the class with To My Side, and you know, Hunter's getting a little bit of a special treatment this expansion, but that meant the 3 common Hunter cards were not revealed until the card dump. So I know you want to talk about Hunter, Merps.
Sure.
And it's like the best. I think it's universally agreed right now that Hunter is the best class in this meta because of the offering odds thing. But so it's like very important for everybody, whether you're a Hunter player or not, to know what cards the Hunters are going to be using. So why don't you walk us through the new cards that the Hunters got?
Sure. All right. Yeah. And last week, you know, we were sitting here. I remember us saying, I have no idea how Hunter is going to go because we haven't seen any of the common cards. But so, right, the common cards that were revealed. Number one is Candle Shot, which is a 1 mana, 1 attack, 3 durability weapon that gives you immune while attacking. So it's just we've seen how good ping is for a non-ping class in Light's Justice for Paladin, right? And with Candle Shot, this thing is just insane amount of tempo. You turn yourself into like Super Argent Squire, right? And who doesn't want to be Super Argent Squire? It just gives you like something really insanely good to do on turn 1. And then if we just look at the other 2 cards, Cave Hydra, 3 mana, 2/4 beast, important. Also damages the minions next to whomever this attacks. Really freaking good. Like, I think you talked me down.
It's less good than you think it is.
Yeah. No, it's still good. It's still good. But yeah,
it's above average.
Yeah. The problem is it's still a 3 mana 2/4, right? It's still a 3 mana 2/4, which limits its abilities. And you know, we've seen other premium 3 mana 2/4s, but those have always had much stronger abilities either from the outset, or they're like much harder to kill. Imp Game Boss is just, it always leaves
But
behind like,
that's the difference, right? Imp Gang Boss
right,
always triggers. This one you need to attack with it.
right. Or Frothing Berserker, you can immediately turn it into like a 5/4 or like a 6/4 on one turn. This, yeah, the speed is much slower. The effect is still like very good, and
Yeah.
The potential, the ceiling for this card is also very good. But it's also a nice 3-drop, which hunters don't really need, let's be honest. But still, it's a low card. And oh my
By the
gosh,
way,
flanking.
if you want to, before you get to flanking strike, if you want to see
Right.
how much hunters don't need 3-drops, or how just this game don't need 3-drops, if you're watching this on YouTube right now instead of listening on the Lightforge, I'm gonna scroll down where we have the Lightforge tier list up. This is just organized by mana, so you can see as I scroll down, the 7+ mana one ends, the 6 mana one ends, and then we keep scrolling, and there's more cards than all the other mana costs. Oh, and the 1-drop and 5-drops end, and we keep scrolling. Oh, and the 2-drops end. Oh, and then the 4-drops end pretty quickly, and we keep scrolling and keep scrolling and keep scrolling and keep scrolling and keep scrolling. Oh, and now the 3-drops end. So that's the difference between the amount of 3-mana cards being offered right now and all the other mana costs. Like, it's not even close. This entire game has too many 3-drops. Not 3-drops, but also like 3-mana cards. And hunters really just add to that problem.
Yeah. So last card is Flanking Strike, which is a 4-mana spell. And basically you deal 3 damage to a minion and summon a 3/3 wolf, which is ridiculous. It's just like a super Fire Plume Phoenix, right? You deal 1 more damage. You summon a beast,
which is better than an elemental.
Yeah, which is better than elemental. So this thing is just ridiculous. And last week, in my head, I was thinking like, man, if the neutrals are low cost, good on tempo, synergizes with what hunters currently have, they certainly have a place in the meta, because when there's a change in meta, when there's a shift in meta, we have seen in the past 3-4 expansions, Hunter is a good class. People are adjusting. People aren't really sure what to do. People are a little bit indecisive, not only in the draft, more importantly in their turns, right? They're not really sure what to do with the cards. They're not really sure what to expect from you. And that indecision mixed with, if you have the capability and ability to just be like, okay, this is how my deck operates. Candle Shot on 1, Tempo out, Flanking Strike, hit face starting from like turn 5 or something, and then Hero Power to win the game. Your opponent's sort of, number one, desire to play with like cool new cards, and number two, just sort of like I don't really know what's going on here with these cards. Suddenly they blink, and then they're at 10 HP on turn 6, and they're dead.
So just to give you guys some like numbers behind these, Candle Shot's a 123, which is a little bit less than Alley Cat, but that's about how good it is, and we all know how insane Alley Cats are. So Candle Shot, totally legit 1-drop. Your Cave Hydra is only slightly above average. It's a 101. It's not a terribly exciting 3. It loses most of its value on the fact that it's a 3-drop, and then you have to like hit minions with it to get its value. These are just like not things hunters need or want. But it's otherwise like it has a pretty good ability. Flanking Strike is a 146, which is a explosive shot. It is a Call of the Wild. It is a Freezing Trap. A Drooled Macaw. Like the top tier of hunter cards is where it's at.
Right.
Eagle Horn Bow is still better, Deadly Shot's still better, but it's gonna beat pretty much everything else. Like it beats out Savannah Hymane. And you can think of it like, I like to think about Flanking Strike as the fireball of the hunters, but going the other direction. Mage's fireball has reach potential. This one doesn't, but it's still deal 3 damage, put 3/3 on the board, right? Rather than deal 6 damage. It has that same kind of like swing like potential on tempo wise. Whereas like for Mage, Fireball's a 147, here Flanking Strike's a 146. It's not like a total coincidence that they're very similarly like rated by our algorithm.
Right. And sometimes you prefer Fireball, sometimes you prefer Flanking Strike, right? Also, we talked about this card last week, but I think after playing with it, after playing against it, Wandering Monster, like it totally plays into what the hunter wants to do now, right? Because what it does is it creates sort of uncertainty in the early turns, uh, and also people will just play into this. Like they'll play a 2/3, you play Wandering Monster, and they'll just like hit your face.
Do they
Um,
really?
yeah, people do
Oh, because
this,
I haven't used the trap yet, but I faced the trap, and
and it
it's
stopped you for many turns.
it did. Because if you
Yeah,
have a small minion, even if it has more than 2 health, you don't want to hit in,
no, you
right?
don't.
Like you need at least a 3/3 to think about hitting in. Usually more like a 3/4 or a 4/4 to think about hitting in. So it has like a lot of like good like mind games kind of values. We have it rated very, very lowly at a 74, and that may change as we learn more about the card. But one thing I will say right now is that because of the lesser emerald spellstone and and the correct offering bonus it's getting, and all of the actual secrets that have pre-existed in the game, along with people overdrafting this Wandering Monster because of, I guess, people being bad at playing around Wandering Monster. Because slowing me down for a couple turns is not that important. Like,
Yes.
it literally means I'm not attacking his face, and I would have otherwise. So he may have gained like 10 health, which is, something, but that's not usually how people beat Hunter. They beat Hunter by getting the board, not dying, and hitting the face. And you're not dying if your choice is, oh, do I hit the Hunter's face? No, I don't. I hit a minion instead. Like, that's not that's not the Hunter putting pressure on you. And the Hunter's anti-templed himself 2 mana to do that. So would I pay 2 mana would I force the Hunter to have 2 mana less in order to heal the Hunter for 10 health? Yes, anytime. Much
Yeah.
less also remove one of the Hunter's cards from his deck, from his hand. Like, oh my god, I would totally take that deal anytime you want to do it. So
Right.
that itself would make Wandering Monster a horrible card. What makes Wandering Monster work is when people do attack into it, either stupidly or even smartly. Because if you attack into it smartly, there's a percent chance you high roll the random minion, right? And it becomes like a basilisk or like a cobra or whatever, and kills the larger minion, or it
like
becomes like a Scarlet Crusader.
Scarlet Crusader, yeah.
And it which happened to us, and it leaves the annoying 3/1 body on the board. Like the potential to high roll is what makes the card decent, and also if you do want to attack face, you are losing some stats on your minions. It's not like it does nothing, right? Like when you finally attack face. So, but still, overall, the mix of it is pretty poor compared to how frequently I see this card. And I think I see this card a lot because we're still in the excitement stage of the meta. People are just taking new cards and seeing what they are, right? Like how to play with it. And so all the new cards will be overdrafted a bit to their value. And this synergizes really well with another new card, Lesser Emerald Spellstone. Which means together, the Lesser Emerald Spellstone actually becomes better too, because people are picking, like if people normally have, I don't know, it's normally going to get 2/3/3 wolves, and then like half the time, less than half the time, it gets 3/3/3 wolves. Well, now it's getting 3/3/3 wolves more than half the time, definitely. Why? Because they're just taking way more Wandering Monsters and other traps than they're supposed to. So Lesser Emerald Spellstone is a 124. It's always been a premium card. But these days, especially if you're predicting what your opponents are going to do, if your opponents are going to have this card, just assume that your opponents are picking this card whenever it is offered. Because that's what they're doing. Because everyone's making these trap hunters.
All right. So I think that's where Hunter is at. Like it's this is something we couldn't have really provided you guys last week because we didn't know what the common cards were, and I was really hoping that the common cards would be good, and they are good, which makes me very happy as a Hunter player. So go out, play Hunter, and definitely take advantage of those greedy like mage and druid players.
So one thing I do want to ask is, how do you face Hunter? Because Hunter is the highest win rate class right now by HS Replay Stats. It actually was the highest win rate class in China by Chinese stats, even in the weeks before this expansion came out. And I think we all agree Hunter got a little better with all these powerful cards, even if they're not like necessarily curve cards. And I mean, Candle Shot is a curve card, so that's not even fair. So they've actually gotten a fair amount of curve cards, and they got very powerful cards. and they were the highest win rate class in China. Now they're the highest win rate class here. Like, what do you do? What do you do against a hunter?
Well, the what I see people do, I think in general, right? Like, and obviously this is still applicable for hunters. Now, what I see people do is they mulligan and try to play the early turns in the way that they want to play, right? Because people are uncomfortable, or maybe they're just a little bit too proud to say like, "Oh, I'm going to change the way I play because of someone else," right? Maybe it's a subconscious sort of pride thing. It's like, no, I'm going to dictate things. I'm playing my way. I'm winning my way. Um, or maybe they're just watching Netflix and they don't care, right? But when you're facing Hunter these days and like seeing the cars that they have and seeing, the potential for the snowball, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like handle shot on one immediately means like, oh shoot, like this could be bad. Because you have basically three separate damage, like three separate targeted damage starting from turn one from the Hunter. And then that's where the snowball begins. So what you should do when facing Hunter is just like it's hard for me to tell you exactly how to mulligan because I can't see your deck, but just realize you can't play the same game, right? And sometimes you have to mulligan a lot more aggressively to get like perhaps like the volcanic potion, right? Or maybe you say, oh man, I like normally I wouldn't like keep this tar creeper, but I really need to keep this tar creeper now. Just realize that like you need to swallow your pride sometimes and say, I'm not dictating things. Like this hunter is going to come at me and I need to be prepared. I need to give up sort
Mm-hmm.
of value in order to get tempo in the early game. I need to respond appropriately.
If your minion
And
has an ability and a body, an
yeah,
understated body, and you need to play it because it is one stat higher than the other body you could have, even though you lose out on the ability, you should play it because you need the stats right now more so than you need the potential for the ability later.
right. I've seen people play something like, go into their turn five. They haven't, they didn't have a good, like they had a fungal mancer and they had like a 2/2 on the board, right? And they could have like, just buff their 2/2 into a 4/4 and then put a 2/2 from the fungal mancer out or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then, they just don't think it's good enough, right? They just don't think it's good enough. So they draw cards instead, something like that. You can't do that. You just have to say, this is not great tempo wise, but I just need the stats out there. So that's kind of how you play Hunter. I wouldn't say like the overall sort of scheme has changed. But I do want to make people aware that when you play as Hunter, you do have to just say, because I'm facing a Hunter, the Hunter is going to be dictating things or trying to aggressively dictate things in the early game, and I just need to like respond to that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So that's Hunter. If you guys like we don't have like a card by card review like video that goes on for 6 hours as we usually do. So this is kind of sitting in for that, at least for the neutral cards. So that's what we're gonna do next. But before we get there, because even though we did review all the other classes as well, we did not talk about like the actual tier list scores, which you can find at thelightforge.com. It was up on day 0 before the expansion launched, just barely. We had to pull some all nighters to get this done because of some of the more complicated cards in this set. But they were done and they're still up there, and the stats are not going to change all that much. We just did a review today to look at our experiences in the first couple days, and they kind of line up. These are I think we got almost all the cards right, and the ones that are being changed, Cataclysm aside. Cataclysm, I think, is the big new card that I do agree that I think we missed on and we overvalued.
Oh, true. Yeah.
But that card aside, I think everyone else is going to stay at almost its like exact score. Um, we'll obviously keep monitoring the situation, but just to let you know, this is one of the most accurately predicted sets by our algorithm from what we've seen so far. And I'm going to quickly run through some of the top cards for some of the classes and their numbers, just for our listeners here. And I'm not going to go through like normal cards or like bad cards, but if you don't hear me mention it, just assume it's like not above average. If it's above average, I'll mention it. So first in Druid, 141, which is an insane rating. That's like premium. This is better than a Starfall. It is the lesser Jasper spellstone that deal 2 damage to 1 minion for 1 mana that gets upgraded whenever you play 3 armor. That's an insanely good card because it starts out at a good card and it gets upgraded if it stays in your hand and you either play a synergy or you just like hero power enough times. Branching Paths comes in at a 101. That's the choose twice one for 4 mana, where you could draw 2 cards, or give your minions +1 attack, or gain 6 armor. Like, you can choose 2 of them. Sorry, draw 1 card, and you can choose 2 of them. So you're usually going to, like, draw a card and give +1 attack, or draw 2 cards. Our algorithm actually predicts that the highest value proposition is to draw 1 card and give all your minions +1 attack. That mix. Not draw 2 cards, and not give your minions +2 attack. So I thought that was interesting. But it comes out on a very average note, which it should, right? That's how we thought that the card was going to end up being. Yeah. Appropriately statted. Okay, we did Hunter. Were there any other Hunter special cards that were high that we had talked about before? No, I think that's it. Crushing Walls comes out at a 147. Super premium card.
I haven't used it, and I haven't seen anyone use it against me yet.
Yeah, that's true. Because Call of the Wild is actually appearing as often as Crushing Walls. More often, actually. Because offering bonuses, weirdly, micro adjust. Who knows? It's Blizzard. But I do think people also don't necessarily take Crushing Walls.
I agree.
Because they're like, oh, opponent has to have 2 large minions. When will that happen as a hunter, right? They're trying to make it more aggressive. But we think it happens on a decent frequency, and it will act as a good removal. Okay, so for Mage, this is Leyline Manipulator at 130. It's a pretty good card. And if you're hearing these numbers and you think they're a little bigger than usual, it's because the Yeti went up by 5 points. Like, the cards in general in this set are so not impressive, including some of the neutrals we're about to show you, that the average, because we're always centered on 100, right? 100 being the average random card's value. So Yeti went up. Not really because of anything else with this set, but just because, like, it's not like Curve is more important now at 4-drop than it was in the prior set. This is purely because we recentered things. And we do it every set. So it's also one of the reasons why numbers go up a little. But Mage, and I'm sure you'll see this card a lot whenever you face a Mage, Dragon's Fury. We said it was going to be good, if not premium. It is good, but not quite premium. 116. 5 mana, double-sided board clear of whatever damage it is that you pull from your deck. The random spell. The cost of a random spell. So, unfortunate RNG there. And Raven Familiar is a 102 right now. The 2/2 beast, 2 mana 2/2 beast that jousts for a card draw, for a spell draw into your hand, and that's actually going to go up. Had a nice long conversation with Taro about the exact odds of winning this joust, and it is a little bit higher than I was. Like, I realized I had not factored in something that I should have, and so that's going up, but just by a little. Like, we're talking less than 10 points, I think. Shifting Scroll is a 101. Shifting Scroll is the Shifter Zarus of spells. It's just a random mage spell in every turn. That's a 101. So on the Paladin side, I guess we'll talk about it now. We have Class Talk Paladin coming up because we're about to do a Paladin run after this. Potion of Heroism is the #1 rated card by far in this expansion for Paladin. It is 2 mana, give Divine Shield, and draw a card. That's
it. Yeah, look, it's always going to be useful, right? Mm-hmm. It's just, are you never going to have the board? Well, even if you never have the board, you always have a guy to cycle it with, right? And no, you don't want a 1/1 with a Divine Shield, but it's one of those cards with so much upside, and the downside is just downside.
The downside is you give a 1/1 a Divine Shield, and you cycle the card. So the downside is like wonderful. um, and the upside is insane. So this is one of the premium Paladin cards that you should pretty much draft whenever you see it. Also, the card that's probably the biggest surprise, Paladins actually have a lot of surprises, is a Call to Arms, which is recruit 3 minions that cost 2 or less, right? Like 2 mana cost or less. And everyone thinks that this is actually going to be such an amazing card.
I argued against this card, right? Like during our deliberations.
No. Oh yeah, you did. You argued against it.
Yeah.
But that's because we were valuing it wrong before, and now we're valuing it right, and you were like, oh, this is much better. So it's a 116. Yeah. This is the card that people like. You talk to people, we probably get more complaints about this card than anything else in terms of what we rated, because they think it's a super premium card. They think it's like a 140, 150, best Paladin card. And they're looking at it and they're thinking, you're summoning 3 2/2s basically, right? For 4 mana. That's an insane amount. That's got to be worth something. But that's not what you're summoning. And that's less because the card itself, like functionally, is not capable of that. It's more because as a Paladin, you probably have more 1 mana cards or understated 2 mana cards than you do actually 2 3s or 3 2s or even 2 2s, like for 2 mana. That's just how Paladin cards work out. So the algorithm looks through it, figures out all of it, and gets you what you're likely to get as a Paladin. And you're just not likely to draft a lot of 3 2s and 2 3s and whatnot. So if you do have a deck that happens to get, like, what are the Paladin 2 drops, right? Paladins don't have a 3-2 or 2-3-2 drop in the class. In fact, one of its best 2 drops is Outfitter, which is a 1-1.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of things are working against it. And in the later turns when you play it, like if you play it on turn 10 or 12 or whatever, you may not even have 3 2-cost or below minions left in your deck. That's a real possibility. So the card gets like much worse as it goes on too.
Yeah, I was just looking at it and I didn't have the exact numbers in my head, but I'm like, okay, if you play this on 4, obviously it should be good, right? Mm-hmm. But if as a Paladin, you're trying to aggressively mulligan for your early game because you need the still ball. And then, you're going to be drawing those cards as well. If you play this on like turn 7 even, right? I'm like, how, like, just judging by the draft, judging by everything, and then like it might still be okay. If you play it definitely later on, like it could just be real bad.
Yeah.
Like really,
really bad. It has a mischance that people just don't internalize correctly.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's what algorithms are for. I would have rated it higher, like if you just asked me and I wasn't allowed to use a calculator. But 116 is, I think, correct on where it's supposed to be. Crystal Line comes in at a 114 with the Silverhand Recruit synergies. Not being as prevalent as you may think, but still being decent. It's the 6 mana 5/5 Divine Shield that costs 1 less for each Silverhand Recruit you control.
Yeah.
So that's almost premium Paladin drop. And finally, there's the Lesser Pearl Spellstone. As you can see, Paladins have gotten a lot of good cards, right? That's why people are excited about it. That comes in at a 110. The 2 mana summon 2/2 with taunt, and every time you heal yourself for 3, summon more like taunts. Not summon more taunts, sorry. Increase the size of the taunt, right?
Yeah. Exactly. You keep on thinking.
I keep on thinking it summons multiple. I think it's the wolves one, right? Because all the other ones are like the shaman copy one copies 1 more. The warrior 5/5 adds 1 more 5/5. The wolves, you get more wolves. This is the only one where the thing grows bigger. That's why I keep mentally thinking about it wrong. But yeah, so that's Paladin. Priest has Twilight Acolyte at a 190. And remember, Twilight Acolyte is 3 mana 2/3 battlecry. If you're holding a dragon, swap this minion's attack with another minions. What that means is, even though you need a dragon to trigger it, which again is not that hard these days, it's still that high. So if this were just a normal ability, the way like Aldor is, it would be like a 300 rating. Like, it's just that good.
It still confuses me, but...
What? You're basically nullifying the existence of a dragon and summoning like a 6 or 8/4, right? Like for 3 mana. That's such a big tempo swing.
Yeah, because the score is when this thing does hit, right? And then you swap the
Well,
attack,
the
which
score is
means
like you just never play this card because its ability is so
until
good,
right,
unless you absolutely need to play it as a 3-drop or you do nothing, or until
yeah,
it hits. You would never otherwise play this card.
yep,
And we're not even assuming you have that many dragons. I think the assumption for priest is like 1.5 or something. It's pretty low. Psychic Scream. Shuffle all minions into your opponent's deck for 7 mana, coming in at a 180, slightly below Dragonfire Potion because it costs 1 more mana. And Dragonfire Potion can pretty much kill everything anyway. But very close to Dragonfire Potion. Has its upsides and downsides. Unidentified Elixir, the 3 mana +2/+2 buff that also gains a bonus effect whenever you draw it, so you know what the bonus effect is, at a 136, another premium card. We knew that was about where it was going to be. And finally, Duskbreaker makes the list at 109, 4 mana 3/3. If you're holding a dragon, deal 3 damage to all other minions. It itself is also a dragon, which can help trigger your other dragons. And of course, it's Dragon Priest. That's the archetype here. You are going to take your priests as you're going to take your dragons as a priest. Then we move on to Rogue with all these good cards that have low offering odds. Lesser Onyx Spellstone 142 is our highest rated card in the new set, followed closely by Elven Minstrel, which is a 4 mana minion. So neither of these are real minions, right? Like Lesser Onyx Spellstone, the trigger is to play 3 Death Rattle cards to upgrade, so you're never going to really upgrade it, but you are basically playing a overcosted Deadly Shot, which is still very good because hard removals are very good and they are getting rarer. And Elven Minstrel is 4 mana. The combo lets you draw 2 minions from your deck. It's a 3/2 otherwise. It's just very good card draw. And after that, Faldori Strider, if you're wondering, that's the 4/4 that shuffles ambushes into your deck. That one is a 116. So almost a premium 4-drop. And all of the secrets suck. Shaman, Unstable Evolution's a 210 right now. Not much to say about that. It's an insane card. It wins you games single-handedly. It's transform a friendly minion into one that costs 1 more, and you can keep playing it on the same turn for 1 mana more each time on different targets even. And Crushing Hand is a 167. Crushing Hand was not revealed before the card dump. It was 2 mana, deal 8 damage to a minion with overload of 3. So it's effectively an assassinate. 8 damage is going to kill pretty much everything.
Yep.
So now Shaman basically have 2 hard removals in addition to Volcano. Makes for a more mage-like experience for Shaman. Warlock cards come in at pretty good scores overall. Your Cataclysm, which we're going to knock down, so I'm not even going to tell you the score right now, except that it's wrong. It's going to end up somewhere like much lower. But Vulgar Homunculus, the 2 mana 2/4 taunt, deal 2 damage to your hero, is a 137. And the Hooked Reaver, 4 mana 4/4, if you are under 15 health, it gains +3/+3 on taunt, is a 119. Your Kobold Librarian is a 116, 1 mana 2/1, like use your hero power for free this turn. And Void Lord, 9 mana 3/9 taunt demon that summons 3 Void Walkers, which are the 1/3 taunts. That's a 117. So a lot of good curve-based minions on here. And on top of all that, it also gets 1 more spell, Lesser Amethyst Spellstone. Deal 3 damage to a minion, lifesteal. And if you take damage from your cards, you can upgrade it. So good selection here from Warlock. And finally, we're going to go with Warrior. Best card is actually Reckless Flurry, which we also get some like raised eyebrows on, but that's just because Warriors don't have ways to deal mass removal damage. So spend all your armor, deal that much damage to all minions, usually just means deal 2 damage to all minions, which is a Volcanic Potion. And a Volcanic Potion I don't even think is rated as highly as this card. So you may be wondering why the hell this card is rated so high, and it's really just because Warrior. And the potential for like armor stacking, right?
The potential is there. It's not crazy to get more than 2 armor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you get more than 2 armor, this thing is really freaking good. And also, like, one thing I want to say is it definitely sort of changes the sort of the calculus of whether to hit minion or hit face for warrior,
Mhm.
right? Like I think about this card, like it's not a huge consideration, but if you think, oh man, if I just like dink all of his like 1/1 or 2/2 minions, I could potentially get destroyed by a Reckless Flurry, right? Because he's keeping 4 armor there, and it's like, okay, let's just leave one of his minions up, and then let's just go face and prevent like the killer 6 damage
Yep.
Reckless Flurry.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. The existence of this card alters how you play against warrior. That's how good it is, right?
Right. Right.
Um. Okay, and the other good warrior card is a lesser mithril spellstone. The summon 5/5 for each time you equip a weapon. Like it's 7 mana. You're gonna equip a weapon at least once, so it's basically 2/5/5s for 7 mana, and then you may get 3/5/5s. It's good.
Mhm.
It's a 126. It's not super premium, just because like high mana cost cards really have to do a lot to be super premium, and this one is kind of conditional, and it does a lot, but it's still just 2/5/5s. It's not like it's basically like not like ultimate infestation or something like that.
Yep.
I think that's it for class cards. Oh, Kobold Barbarian for warrior, the 3 mana ogre. If you remember the old ogre that doesn't know what it's going to hit, it's a 3 mana 4/4, but it attacks a random target at the beginning of each turn, and it uses up its attack when it does that. So, it's a 108 because it's still stats, and your opponent still needs to remove it at some point, or it will hit some things. But it has some aiming issues, which prevents it from being premium.
Yep.
All right, so now I'm going to send you. Now we're going to feature a lot of merps because I just went on a lot about this overview of all the classes. So we're going to talk about every single neutral card now, and we're going to start from the top and go all the way to the bottom. So we did catch one bug that doesn't really affect any of the classes. These neutral cards are correctly rated in the classes, but we like recentered it incorrectly in the neutral one. So all of these are like, I don't know, maybe like 10% higher than they should be or something like that. Like if you just look at a class, like for example, in Mage, we're gonna start with the Stoneskin Basilisk, right, which is a 213.
Right.
In Mage,
Right.
it's a 203. In Hunter, it's a 198. In Priest, it's a 198. But in Neutral, it's a 213. That's just way higher for some reason. And it's because we recentered it based on as if the class only had neutral cards for the neutral class. And that's wrong. And so we're in the process of fixing that one.
Right.
But the scores we're going to give you are going to be based on that. So you can just like mentally subtract like 5% to 10% of the stats from all these. It's going to be the same exact percentage. The order is not going to change. It's not going to change relative to existing cards or anything like that. We
Yep.
just centered the whole thing in a way we shouldn't. So let's start with Stoneskin Basilisk Merps.
Right. Well, this is the meta definer, right? This is the bog creeper, the snail, the wasp of this expansion. It's a 3 mana 1/1 divine shield poisonous beast. Sometimes the beast matters, right?
Mm-hmm.
But with this card, like it's always going to get value, even in the instances where they have a ping. Unless you're facing a rogue that has banked like a dagger charge, they're going to like a lot of time in the bad scenario, they're going to have to spend 2 mana to get rid of the shield, and then you essentially paid 1 mana for a 1/1 poison, which is still really good. And if you're not facing a ping class, then this thing is just ridiculous. So I played it quite a few times. I've like always been happy with the result.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
it's one of those cards where we came in, like, by the way, Bone Mare is a 157 on this scale, and Primordial Drake is a 153 on this scale. So, on the scale of 100 being an average card, and Bone Mare / Primordial Drake basically being, like, plus 50% on the average card, this is plus another 50% on top of that. Like, it is double the distance between Bone Mare and an average card. Like, however much better Bone Mare is than an average card, like double that, and you get how good Basilisk is.
Which some people will immediately say, and I see some people in the chat already being like, no, that's crazy. Bone Mare has won me so many games. You also have to realize how many games Bone Mare lost for you, because it costs 7 mana.
And you
Like,
didn't realize it because you were just like, oh, there's a Bone Mare in my hand and I can't play it, whatever. Instead of saying, well, if I had a Basilisk in my hand, I would have had the entire board by now.
right. So it's one of those considerations where people, when they quote lose because of the Bone Mare or the unplayability of Bone Mare, they're like, oh wow, that sucks. And you never attribute it to the Bone Mare.
Mm-hmm.
But when they win with it, they're like, oh my gosh, I won because of Bone Mare. And that'll happen a lot because Bone Mare is a crazy good card, and you will win a lot with Bone Mare. But it gets to this state where people only attribute the wins to Bone Mare
Yep.
and never attribute the losses to it as well. And you see this for a lot of like high cards. And this is also why when high cards are actually very high on the tier list, it speaks to exactly how good they are,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like Bone Mare being what it is, and the fact that it sort of depends on having another body on the board. The fact that it is so high means, yeah, it's freaking good. Like Deathwing, for example, being 10 mana and being that high means, yeah, it's freaking amazing. So the Basilisk benefits, or its tier score benefits a lot from playability. Playability is something that is very important for its tier score, right? And so when you look at a tier, like an average rating in the tier list, this is something, just looking at it and you're saying, because of the playability, Basilisk is much higher. If you're going to turn 8 or turn 9, would you prefer like a Primordial Drake or Bone Mare? Yeah,
you would.
Yeah,
you would.
You would. But that just means you've already survived until then. So,
and
anyways.
Yeah, that's Basilisk. We stand by the score. We've seen it in play. It is what it is. This is not dropping. And we really we don't have to step out on a limb here, right? Like we could have just called it a 150 and no one was going to give us crap for it. But the algorithm says 200, and so we stuck with it, and we agree. Like if you look at the overall stages in which this card plays and the impact that it has on each turn, and you figure out its penalties for staying in your hand and all of that, Basilisk is so insanely good. It's brokenly good. Like, frankly, Primordial Drake and Bone Mare are kind of brokenly good. Basilisk is extremely brokenly good. This card should be banned from the arena, in all seriousness. And so should Drake and Bone Mare, but, really, this card should really be banned. This is totally not fair. Like, if your opponent has a Basilisk on 3, and you don't have a counter for that, which you probably don't because only very few cards counter a Basilisk, you've lost the whole board in one turn. It's like Shielded Minibot if it were like a 3/3 instead of a 2/2. Like that levels of ridiculousness of I have destroyed the board.
Yeah, it's really insanely good. So anyways, that's Stoneskin Basilisk, sitting at the very tippy top of the meta for common neutrals. Next, we have Dragon Slayer, and once again, recognize the fact that the score at the end will be a little bit lower. So no, the ultimate score for neutrals will bump it a little bit lower than.
But relative to other neutrals, it'll stay the same, and I think that's important because Dragon Slayer is a 3-mana 4/3 with Battlecry that says deal 6 damage to a dragon. And that looks like a lot of drops with an extra ability, and they're good. And you see Toxic Suru's hanging out at 138, right? Like that's a 3-mana 4/3, and you remove 1 durability from your opponent's weapon, and you think, hey, that's pretty good. There's no way a Dragon Slayer should be better than that, right? Right? A Dragon Slayer is a 161 on this scale, which puts it above Primordial Drake and Bone Mare. And this is one we don't have the best feel for yet. I've had this in exactly one of my decks because it just hasn't been offered to me because Offering Odds Blizzard stopped screwing them up. But when it was in my deck, it worked. It was the 4/3 on curve it needs to be. Yep. And it hit a lot of dragons, actually, when it wasn't played on curve. And when it hit a dragon, it had a big impact. So
this is one of those cards in which you will not always hit a dragon with the battle cry. But when you do hit a dragon with the battle cry, the value of this is through the roof high. Like, if we're talking, what is the tier score of a Dragon Slayer when it hits a dragon? It's what, like a 500 or something?
Yeah. Oh, you
like
mean a 3
ridiculous.
mana 4/3 that deals 6 damage to a minion?
To a minion, right?
Yes.
It would, yes. It would
Yes.
be like what, a 500, 600
Yeah.
tier score. Yeah, something ridiculous, like best card ever, like kind of deal. So it's one of those things where you do have to provide an average tier score for it, and then you do see that the times in which you hit with it vastly pull this card up, and it's but at the same time, it's not like one of those cars that's like an O3 for 3 and like deal 20 damage to like a dragon, right? Like it's not like that much of swing. Plus 20 damage isn't like that great, anyways. But yeah, like your floor for the card is what you should get for the mana. So this is just insane. It's just an absolutely insane card. Yeah.
It's one of those cards that wins you the game if it hits. And if it doesn't, it's a really good card. Like on curve. Just a injured Blade Master. What's an injured Blade Master on this scale? Injured Blade Master on this scale is a 117. Yeti's a 116 on this scale, just for the comparison.
Right.
And so it goes to the whole thing where 3-drops have been increasing in value every single expansion, and it has again in this expansion, which makes 3-drops even more usable. And the whole point of 4/3s being not as good before was because there were a lot of 3/2 2-drops. Blizzard has not released a 3/2 2-drop in the neutral set for 3 expansions in a row. And so these 4/3s just keep getting better and better.
Right. We can also, and I do want to talk about this for just like a tiny bit. This is one of those cards that, and I think Firebat was the person who really spoke out against this. He's just like, these cards are not healthy for the game. Like just pure hate cards.
No more crabs.
Yeah,
Hashtag crab hate.
It's like sort of eating a pirate, eating a murloc, dealing 6 damage, which dragons are huge. Sometimes 6 damage doesn't even do it, right? Like Sleepy Dragon, it doesn't even kill a Sleepy Dragon. Oh, sorry, it doesn't even kill a 9-drop. What am I talking about? But yeah, these pure sort of like hate cards are just. It's like, do you not drop the Hoarding Dragon? Do you not drop your Cobalt Scale?
No, you can't. You can't play around this card.
So, which makes it even more powerful, which makes it even more frustrating. But yeah,
And if you guys are playing these dragons and you're like, I don't get Dragon Slain a lot, that's because it has half the offering rate that it should have. You'll get Dragon Slain a lot more once Blizzard fixes this whole thing. Assuming they fix the whole thing. Alright. So next card up is Carnivorous Cube. It's an epic card, 5 mana, 4/6, eats your own minion, and then creates 2 of it. We're not going to talk about this again. We talked about it so much. This is one of the first revealed cards. I feel like we can skip this one. Obviously a ton of value, right? At the cost of a little bit of tempo.
Yep.
And you gain the tempo back whenever this thing dies.
More.
Yeah, more. Like, I haven't found a really great way to deal with it if I wasn't already on the board and going face. And if I was already on the board and doing that, then he's probably not playing this to eat his own minion. Or he doesn't have any minions to eat. But it's one of those cards where if it actually gets played, you're screwed. You're screwed. Another card. This one is less game-winning. Surprisingly so, I think. You can tell me how you feel about it. 7 mana, 5/5 Beast. But it costs 1 less whenever a minion dies while this is in your hand. Any minion, your side, your opponent's side. So it usually comes out for like somewhere around no mana. What have your experiences been with this card? I've played with it a lot, actually.
It's really good. It depends on sort of the class that you are playing it in, right? Because I find for a lot of example, like for control matchups, right? I get this out as at a discount in the later turns, like at a huge discount in later turns, but it doesn't matter as much, right? Like a 5/5 body is just big enough to be like big, but not like a 5 is still very susceptible to some like very popular clears, right? Like Firelands Portal or just Dragonfire, Fellfire, etc. What I have found this really shining in are the tempo decks, the stuff that gets out something in turn 1, turn 2, and if you can get a 4 mana 5/5 beast out as a hunter, if you can get a sometimes like a 3 mana 5/5 out, depending on how the early
See,
turns
I
shake
still
out,
wouldn't play it
right?
that way. I think I would just keep it in my hand until it's like a free 5/5 on turn 6. Like, why would you spend 4 mana on turn 4 if in 2 more turns you just get a free 5/5? You just saved 4 mana.
Well, it depends. I'm saying for Hunter, you would, and if you have a good curve, you just keep this, right? And then you would just like on turn 3, if you're playing like I don't know, a secret versus playing a 5/5, I'm playing the 5/5.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Right. Like, look, it'll depend game to game exactly what'll happen, and I think your scenario will play out as well. But like, where I think this card truly shines is in those sort of early tempo decks, so I've seen this like be really, really good there. And when this card comes out in those situations, like it comes out really cheap on turn 6 and on turn 7, um, it is really annoying, but its impact is sometimes just negated by the AoEs and the clears and just the weird kooky stuff that can happen starting from those later turns.
Mm-hmm. Yep. It's a 144, same as Carnivorous Cube. This is around where Wasp is, where Stonehill Defender is, where it's a little above Ascetic Swamp Ooze and a little below Cultmaster and Cultmaster. Cultmaster, by the way, went up by a lot because the board is getting messier. It's like I really like that the algorithm figures out all the board states and things like that and just kind of applies them. Although all that is going to still move a little as we adjust more to this meta and the offering rates that are being given. The next card is a little bit of a controversy, and we are lowering a bit. We're not lowering by too much, but we caught a bug that was affecting all the auras and has been affecting all the auras for like a long time, and we fixed it. And it's going to make all the aura cards kind of go down a bit. So you're gonna see like Stormwind Champion at the lowest point that you've ever seen that card rated,
Which I think is more than fair.
yeah. Even though the board is actually getting more like complicated, I think it's interesting, but it doesn't have the same impact it used to have. I agree with you that I don't think that Stormwind Champion, which used to be like a premium card, right? Like remember a Classic? It was like right up there with like Ascetic Swamp Ooze and like as the next group of cards after Yeti, right?
It's kind of crazy. It's like now, what do you expect on turn 7? It's like Bowmare. It's like, oh, thank God. It's like, oh, he's only got a Stormwind Champion. We're good.
It's a 6/6 that gives +1/+1 to like your 1 minion on the board, or like 2 minions on the board, instead of a 5/5 that gives +4/+4 to a minion on the board.
And taunt.
And taunt. Oh yeah, on top of that.
Yeah.
Why does it give taunt?
I don't know.
Why?
It's like, why does Primordial Drake have taunt, right?
Oh my God. Okay. So anyway, it's a Sneaky Devil, the card we're talking about. It's a 142 right now. When the update happens, probably like early or middle of next week, it's probably going to be like a low 130s, I want to say, relative to the current scale. And the scale is going to change again, so it's going to be like a 125 actually. It's a 4 mana 2/2 demon. First neutral demon, very playable. Like no matter what, this is going to be a premium card, right? The question is just how premium. And it has stealth. And its ability is your other minions have +1 attack. So it's a raid leader that has stealth and costs 1 more mana.
Yeah, yay.
Yeah, okay. So Merps hates a lot, and he hates on this card a lot.
I hate this card. I don't. I think this is our biggest disagreement this set, right?
Yes.
Is it this card?
Well, the other ones I kind of talked you into it, but yeah, this is is definitely. I think that's a fair categorization.
Yeah, I think that is.
Yeah, and the real question is just how much do you value that stealth? So at 2 health in the stealth, anything that deals 2 damage. So first of all, if someone's like deadly shotting this or whatever, you've gotten so much value out of it, right? Like if anyone's actually spending that on this card, you're good. The problem is board clears, because you can't target it. You're never going to really attack with it unless you're a hunter. So any kind of board clear that deals 2 damage or more will also wipe this card up with you, with it. And it's a very valuable card for only being 2 health. So that's your only real counter. Past that, you permanently give your entire board +1 attack. And that's where the value is, right? This is not something that's going to give +1 attack to a couple of minions, right? This is like as if you can always chain totem your Flame Tongue, right? I really think of this more of like a spread out Flame Tongue than anything else.
Yeah, but the thing with Flame Tongue, you can already spread. Anyways, I understand what you're going with, so I'm not going to pick at your analogy here. I just don't see, and I've used it, quite a few times as well. Just don't know. We'll see. We'll see. Like at the end of the day, my sample size with all of this is still really small. I've only played like how many runs, so yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
And it's a card like this, which I would say it's harder to evaluate than you guys might think, because a lot of it depends on sort of the speed of the game, right?
Right.
The speed of the game determines exactly how good a card like Sneaky Devil is, and I still don't have a great grasp on what is the average speed of the game, or sort of what decks have Sneaky Devil and how they want to play versus how they're like. There's a lot of things.
So I want to address people in the chat right now who are saying the card doesn't help if you're behind. It's the exact opposite. This card is good when you're behind. It has stealth. You can't target it. Any other card that buffs your minions is way worse than this card when you're behind. Yeah. This is the best buff card in the entire game when you're behind.
Like,
outside of actually giving like taunt or something, right?
Right. And I want to address this because a lot of people say this argument. Like, so many cards are really bad when you're behind. Like, a ridiculous amount of cards are terrible when you're behind. At least with Sneaky Devil, like it has stealth and it buffs up your other minions. I mean, you can say Bone Mare is just a dead card, like a 7-mana 5/5 if you're behind. So, anyways, sorry.
And if you're wondering why it's good, it's not only because it has stealth and then it won't get killed. It's that every other thing you play afterwards will gain +1 attack. Every other card. So as long as you're not like actually dead, you can get way more stats than, what do you expect from 4 mana? Like 8, 9 stats? So even if you don't count this 2/2, which has to be either removed or whatever, you can definitely play like quite a number of minions over the course of the game. Minions with taunt, minions with things that, like divine shields, chargers, like all sorts of minions work well with this.
Yep.
All right. So next neutral card, 3 mana, 3/3 demon, Void Ripper, Battlecry, swap the attack and health of all other minions. It is a epic card. It's 132 right now, which is where like Bittertide Hydra, Blood Knight, Bomb Squad, Defender of Argus are.
This is a card that I think could potentially just get better and better as the meta, like as expansions come out, because of the reasons, like I said, right? It seems like Blizzard is trending in the direction of, we're going to make the board more interactive. And how are we going to do that? It's not going to be from 3/3s into 4/4s into 5/5s into 6/6s. It's going to be like 1/5s into 5/1s into like just all this crazy shenanigans, right? So the ability to flip is going to be pretty valuable. And this is flipping everything, which means it gives you more of a chance to manipulate the board before you flip it and then capitalize on the flipping.
Yeah. It's a good card. It's like if you're looking at the value that this card gains for flipping everything on the board, it's a little questionable, but it's at least a cookie chemist, right? Like levels of stuff, and that has a lot of value. I'm gonna kind of okay. We'll just do this. We'll just do this in order. Violet Worm 130. Another premium card. 8 mana 7/7. Death Rattle. Summon 7/1/1 grubs. Not much to say here. It's a large card. Blizzard has understood that to make large cards good, they have to be very overstated at this point. So this is very overstated. Obviously, it's gonna have way more than 8/8 worth of stats by the end of the day. And yeah, it's a giant big body. It's better than Threshodon if you're trying to make that comparison. I don't know, nothing much else to say for it. A BGH target. That's BGH is a worthy card now. like there's so many big things and so many buffs. Like BGH is actually like average in our tier list.
Yeah. And this goes expansion by expansion,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like where you look at all the big things that are out there and it's like, well, what could it potentially hit? And how often are people taking it? So Violet Worm, something like this, definitely helps. Now, the fact that the Death Rattle summons 7/1/1 grubs doesn't like it means your BGH isn't getting the supreme value that you want to be getting with it, but still, way to deal with the initial body.
Mm-hmm. Lone Champion, 3 mana, 2/3. Again, one of the earliest release cards. We won't talk about it too much. Battlecry, if you control no other minions, gain Taunted Divine Shield. So if it's on curve, you're probably getting the Battlecry, but it can't protect any minions from a turn before. Like, it can protect the minion if you drop it on the same turn, but you can't, like, trade with a minion, leave it at 1 health, and then protect it, right? Like, nothing like that. So, it's pretty good, but not as insane, I think, as people may think it is.
Yep.
Shroom Brewer, 4 mana, 4/4, Battlecry, restore 4 health to Earthenry Farseer. It's 25 points. I think Earthenry Farseer is around the same score. It's not a big mystery there. And the more interesting card, 123 rated, it's Fungomancer. Battlecry, give adjacent minions +2/+2. It's otherwise only a 2/2. So, Super Defender of Argus. What do we think about this?
We've used it a few times to good effect, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a good player, you should be on the board. You should be dictating trades. This thing is just good. Like, and we've stated already, the board is messy now. I wouldn't say sticky. It's just messy.
Yep.
So you should be trying to set up a board in which you have 2 targets, and if you have 2 targets, it's 5 mana for 6/6 worth of stats, and 4/4 of them have initiative.
Yeah.
That's really, really freaking good.
Yeah, and it's about the same as a Sunborn Valkyr, if you're wondering. Sunborn Valkyr is a tiny bit better, but that one has a 5/4 body, even though it doesn't have any initiative in terms of attack.
Yeah.
All right, Arcane Tyrant, 120. It's a pretty straightforward evaluation here. It's a 5 mana 4/4 elemental. Costs 0 if you cast a spell that costs 5 mana or more this turn. So you just look at how many 5 mana or more spells you have. If you have a decent number, like, more than 2, let's say, then it's a pretty decent card, and you're usually going to have more than 2. It goes a lot lower depending on the class, right? Some classes don't have a lot of usable spells in that category, and in other classes it's higher. But it's a pretty straight up synergy, and you do get the nice 4/4 tempos worth. And otherwise, playing a 5 mana 4/4, not the end of the world. So it's actually a fairly high rated card. Spiteful Summoner, after that, 6 mana, it's basically the same score. 6 mana 4/4. Reveal a spell from your deck. Summon a random minion with the same cost.
Yep.
Merps.
We all remember Faceless Summoner, right? 6 mana for a 5/5, and then it summons a random 3-drop. Here, a lot of it depends on sort of what spells you have. It's kind of good that you can control it. Like, you can look at the deck, you're like, oh, geez, I have big spells. Or you can sort of say, oh, I'm just going to wait a little bit, draw my Frostbolt, and then all I have are Firelands Portals and Pyroblast, right? And then I can just play this. But yeah, I think this is, on average, a decently good card. You can get 4/4, and then what's the average cost that you're going to pull out? Like a 3/4 mana spell?
Yeah, like a 4 mana spell.
Yeah. Which is not bad, because for 4 mana, you're going to get around a 4/4, right? Yeah. So it's 6 mana for a 4/4 and a 4/4, which you might ask, why isn't it higher than this then? And it's just, we penalize RNG a decent amount. Like, you don't want to put the game into the hands and say, well, okay, I could super win if it hits my 8 or 10 mana spell, right? And you get a 4/4 and an 8/8, and that's amazing. But then if you hit your you hit your Frostbolt, or you hit your Breath of Sindragosa, and you get a 4/4 and a 2/2 for 6 mana, you're like, oh, that's
horrible.
Yeah, that's really bad. So it's a good card, and you should pick it. And the fact that you can control it means this score is going to vary significantly depending on your deck.
Yes.
But you are definitely going to lose some games because of it as well, and because you can't like exactly control the makeup of your deck. So yeah.
Fungal Enchanter next, 116. 3 mana, 3/3, heal 2 health to all friendly characters. Again, not much to say here. We had that 5 mana card that's a 4/5 that does the same thing. And this is rated higher because it doesn't lose as many stats for the same ability.
Right.
And is a drop. Like a bad drop, but a drop.
Yep.
Hoarding Dragon, we talked about this enough times. 4 mana, 5/6, gives your opponent a bunch of coins. When it dies, is very vulnerable to Dragon Slayer, but generally pretty good, right? 116. It's actually the exact score of a Yeti. I thought that was interesting, that we have all these fancy calculations, right, going on with like, how much is the coin worth? What if your opponent can ramp out a minion with the coin, right? What is an extra curve on 4 worth? What's the dragon part worth? You know, like all that's being calculated, and then at the end it's like, yeah, it's a Yeti.
Yep.
So that's Hoarding Dragon. Boisterous Bard, which again, like all things that buff all minions, it's going to be lowered a bit, so I'm not going to talk much about it, but it's going to end up being like an average card, like a slightly above average card anyway. 3 mana, 3/2, Battlecry, give your other minions +1 health. Oh, sorry, this is not the card I'm thinking of. This one actually is not going to move. Battlecry, give your other minions +1 health. For 3/2, that's 2 stats. That means to really get the stats worth, you need 2 minions on the board. But the reason it is so high is because if you actually buff 1 health on your minions, like 3/2s or 2/3s or whatever, it usually saves them. So the chance that this 1 extra health actually matters is actually a decent amount.
Yep.
Especially when you're going to play it, because you would never just randomly play a 3/2 otherwise. So Boisterous Bard. I think the what you should get from this is it's better than you think it is, because I think people would normally think it's like not very good at all.
Yep.
Next, for the same score, Green Jelly. You want to talk about it? I love this card.
Yeah, I know. It's sort of got shades of Sludge Belcher and Hogger at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Green Jelly is a 5 mana 3/3. At the end of your turn, summon a 1/2 ooze with taunt. We've seen how annoying 1/2 with taunt is, like throughout history. This thing was a little bit hard for me to evaluate, but the snowball potential is there, right? And the percentage of times that this thing will die immediately versus this thing just like, if it summons 2 1/2s with taunt, it's good. Like it's already good. If it dies immediately, it's not getting what it should get, but you're not like losing that much at the same time. And taunt is most likely useful. So the number of times I've seen this being played, I'm like, oh, it's pretty good, right? It's pretty good. And whenever the opponent can't deal with it, it sort of just runs away, because it gives you the opportunity to leverage your small taunts and then make favorable trades, and your opponent can't, trade back, or you could just start going face or whatever you want. So this is one of those cards in which I didn't exactly know how to feel, but I was like, all right, well, I've gotten beat by it quite a few times already.
Yep. Corrosive Sludge. It's a 5 mana 5/5.
Ooze. That's basically it. Blizzard apparently said, we don't have enough oozes in the game. Let's make another ooze.
We don't have enough oozes in the game, at least in the arena. Scorpomatic.
Yeah, Scorpomatic. 2 mana 1/2 mech. Battlecry. Destroy a minion with 1 or less attack. We talked about this for a long time.
Yeah.
And we really try to see, this is why knowing the offering rate of Basilisk is so not only Basilisk, but there is another card. I just want to touch upon it for a sec. Trog Gloom Eater, right? Which we have at a 104. It's a 5 mana 1/5 taunt poisonous minion. And we're looking at it, we're just like, okay, what do we want to eat with the Scorpomatic here? We want that thing to immediately destroy a basilisk. We want to destroy a gloom eater, and then we want to destroy like sort of snails, right? And then the conclusion I think we've reached with this card is just because it's so bad and you almost never want to tempo it out, you're just going to hold on to it, which does have some sort of penalty, right? And sometimes you're just going to be like, yeah, you're just going to eat a 1/1. You're just going to eat a 1/2. You're going to eat a totem from a shaman. But because of the fact that you're not going to want to tempo this out, you're going to hold it in your hand, it is going to get a lot of value at certain percentage of times.
Yep.
So that's kind of what the score is. And also part of the reason it's not higher is like, even when you eat something, you're like, haha.
I now have a 1/2.
I now have a 1/2. It's not like Dragon Slayer, in which you like eat a dragon and then you're like, oh, I have a 4/3, right? So yeah.
Yeah. That's Scorpomatic. It should be lower than this because of the current offering odds not being what they should be. But if they ever fix it, then it'll go back to where it is right now, which is around where Fairy Dragon is. It's good. It's good. You'll need to eat some 1-attack things. Now we're on to... So all these have been below Yeti, right? Because remember, Yeti was where back when we talked about Hoarding Dragon. Now we're on Fairy Dragon level. We're going to keep going down now. Kobold Apprenticed is below Fairy Dragon level. 3 mana, 2/1. Deal 3 damage randomly split among all enemies. So it's an Arcane Missile with a 2/1 body, and it costs 3 mana. Still better than average. But yeah, now we're into the like normal cards that you play and don't feel particularly good about or bad about.
Well, the next one you particularly feel bad about because it's Plated Beetle.
Okay, so I feel bad about Plated Beetle is a 2 mana 2/3 beast with Death Rattle, gain 3 armor. It's a perfectly good card. I feel bad about it because the noise annoys the hell out of me. Like the attack sound, the summon sound, everything about it just annoys the hell out of me. I did not think I was going to hate this card so much. But oh god, it's just so like sharp. I don't know. There's got to be people out there who share my thoughts, like my feelings, not thoughts, my feelings about this card. It just feels bad to like play it or face it or anything. It's also, and as expected, right? It's also, I think by HS replay stats, like the most frequently picked common card in all of Kobolds and Catacombs, even though it's not very highly rated. Why? Because there's no more 2-drops, and you have to take your 2-drops, and this one gets offered.
Yep.
Kobold Monk is next, 109, so still above the average card, but again, we're now at the point where we're definitely below, like we're still above a Raptor, but we're below the average card in your deck, right? So we're between, average card in your deck is approximately where Yeti is. So all these cards have been below the average card in your deck, but above an average random card. Kobold Monk, 4 mana, 3/6, your hero can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. Not much to say here, can prevent reach, but generally speaking, no one's targeting your hero. Toothy Chest, we're now below. We're now worse than a Raptor. 3 mana, 0/4. At the start of your turn, set this minion's attack to 4. You want to talk about it? This one's kind of interesting.
This one's kind of interesting, just because it's another one of those cards in which the swing is very, very big, right? And the problem with Toothy Chest, because you immediately think of something like Validated Doomsayer. The one of the things that differentiates it from Validated Doomsayer is the fact that it's hard to deal 7 damage like on turn 5. It's just pretty hard. But there's a good amount of 3-drops, see Dragon Slayer, that can deal with this and just kind of like free kill it on turn 3 if you don't have the initiative. And whether you have the initiative or not, sometimes it just depends on whether you get the coin or not, right? So the problem with this card is, you have to balance the really bad scenarios versus the scenarios where you just get like kind of a 3 mana 4/4, which is amazing.
Yep. That's that. I agree totally. The score is subject to change. That's actually one of the hardest cards to calculate in the entire set. And we're doing the same thing we're doing with Validated Doomsayer, but it's like not the most sophisticated thing. So we're still observing that card. Now the next two cards are basically totally, completely average cards in the sense that they are average for being offered. You will have better cards than this in your deck. So there are Cursed Disciple, 4 mana, 5/1, Death Rattle, summon a 5/1. Basically, it's a 4 mana 5/1 with Divine Shield.
Yeah.
You know, it gets more and more like worth it, like less and less worth it as the attacks get higher to only have 1 health, because now everything's pinging it, right? Like this gets pinged. That's what happens.
Right. It's still, it's definitely draftable. We've used it a few times. We've been beaten by it, like I think once or twice, definitely. But yeah, we're in the realm of cards in which you're just like, yeah, I guess I'll take it.
Yep. Trog Gloom Eater. We talked about this already. It's the 1/5 poisonous with taunt. Apparently, Venomancer was too crappy, so Blizzard upped the ante here and gave it an extra taunt and removed 1 more damage that it could deal to face. So almost strictly better card, but still not that good, because Venomancer I think was surprisingly not that good. It was surprisingly never rated that good by the algorithm, and then surprisingly it was right.
Cards that sort of like, if they force you to play a certain way, they better be like really good in terms of like stats or abilities or something. Like I found that a lot of times with Venomancer, because I'm not going face. Like the calculus there always favors me sort of trading and hitting, right? It's not like a Tiger in which I'm just like, okay, well, I could trade or I could go face. Like the 5 damage is worth it for me. And the inability for you to sort of decide what to do and just like always trade, it really does bump it down quite a lot, like more than I thought I would when I first saw Venomancer months ago.
Yep. Now we're going to go on to below average cards. These cards you definitely don't want them in your deck, right? Because below Yeti you just don't want in your deck. But these you don't even want to see offered. These are below average offered cards. You're actually like, you're still kind of okay with these, not that bad yet, but they're kind of iffy. It's a 101 right now. Before the recentering, it's gonna end up being like a 96, 97 maybe. Sewer Crawler, which is Razorfen Raptor. They reprinted it. Nothing different about it.
Nope.
Hungry Etten, 6 mana, 4/10. Summon a random 2-cost minion for your opponent.
Summon a random Doomsayer.
Yeah, that happened so often. I'm not even saying like that happened like once or twice. I'm saying like that happened once or twice out of the 5 times I played this card.
Right. Look, uncertainty is not a good thing in this game, especially because there are so many 2-drops that you like. I found that whenever I play this, I've like really just like braced myself, right? I'm just like, oh gosh, please, which is not a great thing. Which is really not a great thing. Like, are you still gonna take it? Yeah, and it's nice to have a 4/10 taunt still, and you're gonna see this card quite a lot, but the RNG definitely penalizes this card.
It's one of those things where like if losing the game you normally had a 25% proposition in, like upping that percent chance is really bad. On the other hand, if losing a game you had like 75% chance to lose anyway, then the RNG whatever, right? Like can only help you. So the better you are at this game, the much worse this becomes. Because of Doomsayer, because of potential, like, I don't know, even like a Loot Hoarder or something. The Snail, like, it can get pretty bad.
All right, so next we have Sleepy Dragon, which is a 9 mana, 4/12 taunt with Dragon, also known as a Kooky Chemist Dragon Slayer target. But yeah, this is, look, if you're going to draft something big, it might as well have either initiative or taunt, right? This fulfills it. That's it. Not much to say there. Next card is Shrieking Shroom. I
This
love
is
this
really
card.
interesting. I love the card. It's just unfortunately not that good.
No,
And having played with it a lot, I've had a lot of decks with this card in it just because they keep giving me really bad options. It's really not that good.
it is not that good,
It's
unfortunately.
playable,
Oh yeah, of course.
but it's not that good because it looks like it could potentially be very good or like pretty good or okay or horrible. Like you don't like it's hard to predict just by looking at this card. It's a 3 mana 1/2. At the end of your turn, summon a random 1 cost minion. So it's bad in most situations where you have to put it up against anything because it gets killed immediately. And you've just played a 3 mana 1/2 taunt that generates like a 1/1 or a 2/1 or a 1/2, right?
Yeah.
That's not good. Like you don't pay 2 extra mana on top of a Goldshire Footman to get a 1/2 or a 1/1. You just or a 2/1 even. You just don't. That's horrible. And Goldshire Footman's not even good. So there's a lot of bad case scenarios for this card. Of course, the upside is and here's the real problem, right? Why this card's not that good? Because the upside is not good. Normally,
Right.
a lot of cards have bad downsides where there are situations where you can't play, like even Bone Mare, right? But on the upside, Bone Mare eats something huge, and your guy still survives, and it still has taunt, and you get the 5/5 anyway. Shrieking Shroom, the upside is you get an extra 1/1 or 2/1 or whatever every turn. That's not actually game winning. That's like okay. And that's the
Yeah.
upside scenario.
And part of the like I recognize people will say like I've won a game with this. It has given me so much value, and it's like yeah, there's a lot of snowball cards right in the game.
Look
There's a lot
at
of
look
cards
at
in which
that totem
right
that summons
Pro-
1/1s.
Primal Fin
Yeah,
Totem.
that's only 2 mana.
Yeah,
And it
for
has one more
50%.
health.
Yeah, for 50% of the cost.
Well, not 50.
You
For 2/3.
Oh, sorry, 2/3. Math.
Ah.
Sorry. For a yeah. You basically get a better card. Like and also it's a totem, right?
Mm-hmm.
Shamans have totem synergies, Primal Fin, and it creates Murlocs.
And if you're
It's
wondering
just
why
like
Primal Fin's rated a 60 right now, that's bugged right now. We're fixing it.
yes,
Or
yes,
we've already fixed it. It's just not live yet. It's going to be much higher.
right. But yeah, so it's easy to look at snowball cards and say, but I won because of the snowball card. You always have to recognize like, okay, but how does it compare to other snowball cards, right? And a lot of snowball cards are just much better than this one. Gaining a 1-drop every single turn is very meh.
Yep. Okay. Where else? We're now getting deep into the not as good cards now. Guild Recruiter, 5 mana, 2/4, recruit a minion that costs 4 or less. We said it was bad, it's bad. It's 95 right now, it's gonna end up being like a 92 or something. Don't pick it. Grand Archivist is up next. I'll leave it to you to tell people why Grand Archivist is bad.
Look, this is like the ultimate RNG, right?
8 mana,
Like
4/7. At the end of your turn, cast a spell from your deck. Targets chosen randomly.
is there a way to sort of narrow down like the choices that this thing will have? Yeah, sure. There's ways to control this, but at the end of the day, if you're doing this in order to, just hope that you grab the Flame Strike instead of grabbing the Frostbolt and the Frostbolt hitting your face or hitting the Grand Archivist, you can do that. But if we're penalizing RNG for like some of these others, as you see that we have done, this is getting a huge RNG penalty.
Mm-hmm. Huge. And of course, it's different in every class. It's like even worse in some classes.
It's different in certain classes, and it'll be very different, once you get to like pick 20.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of those cards in which you see the value here, but then once you're inside the draft, the value will significantly change.
Okay. Other bad cards. Furbolg Mossbinder, 5 mana 1/1, Battlecry transform a friendly minion into a 6/6 elemental. Here's the thing with a 6/6 elemental. It cannot attack yet. So you're just...
If it had initiative, this would be much different.
Yeah, exactly. It's not a buff. It transforms the minion. So your minion does whatever it does. It can hit face. It could, if it can eat something and lose some more health, even better. And then you upgrade it into a 6/6 elemental. So just even like stat-wise, to make it worth it, you have to be upgrading at least a 2/2 or smaller card. Like, what are the odds?
Yeah.
They're very low. So that's why this card sucks. Gravel Snout Knight, another not so good card, and this one's surprising. Like, I still don't know if this is accurately rated by the algorithm right now, because its algorithm's giving like these low scores for it, but I think it should be okay. I think it's just being penalized so much for the RNG. It's a 1 mana 2/3 Battlecry, summon a random 1-cost minion for your opponent, and I think it does the same thing that Hungry Etten does, even though there's no Doomsayer necessarily. And that, what are you gaining from this? Not a lot, unless you play it on turn 1, right? Like, let's say it's a 1 mana 2/2. Let's say you win the RNG battle. Your opponent just has a 1/1 or a 1/2 that does nothing, right? Fine. What happens? You get a 2/2. That's not good in the late game. And in the late game, your chances of your opponents getting something like that priest 1/1 that draws a card, or like something else ridiculous, that exists. And are you really going to play those odds? If you're winning, you may not want to play this card at all in the later game. And that's really bad for a card. So you're trying to balance this, like, do I play it on turn, like, do I have it in my hand on turn 1, and if I get it later, this is probably going to be really bad. So, this is a not so good card. Like, don't think of it as a 1 mana 2/2, basically.
No, because a card that is a 1 mana 2/2 on average is not a 1 mana 2/2.
Yeah,
that's basically it. Or it doesn't have the same value as a 1 mana 2/2.
Yep. 78 coming in is Dire Mole, the 1 mana 1/3. It's a 1 mana card. It doesn't do enough in this meta. This is not a fast meta. Hunters aside, like, you're not doing a lot of things with speed here. There's too many taunts. There's too many things that get in your way. Boards are messy, and this guy unfortunately doesn't do enough in this meta. Eben Dragonsmith, we're getting into like the bad cards that's basically in the don't draft. If you're wondering, Dire Mole is like about the same as a 2/1, like as a Murloc Raider, the way we're rating it. Ebon Dragonsmith, Battlecry, reduce the cost of a random weapon in your hand by 2. Again, you need weapons, so in neutral it's not going to be rated that well. Even in a class with weapons. Let's see what it is in Warrior. It's a 94 in Warrior. So if you're in a class with a whole ton of weapons, it becomes kind of playable, right?
Right. Makes sense.
But otherwise, it's crap. Shimmering Courser is a 4 mana 3/3. You can target this with spells and hero powers. So it's a fairy dragon ability, but you can get around it. Who cares? It's a 3/3. I think it's a 4 mana 3/3. It's gonna suck. Wax Elemental, 1 mana 0/2 taunt with Divine Shield. It's I don't know how else to describe it, but
it's very annoying.
Yeah, it's very annoying. It's a shield bearer, but it's good. I mean, it's not good, but it's better than a shield bearer potentially. Like shield bearer, we're also caught another bug that has to do with 0 attack minions. So that's the bug that's bringing down Primal Fin. So Wax Elemental is actually going to go up, but not by that much. It's still going to be a bad card.
Right. Yep.
And you want to talk about Feral Gibbler, 1 mana 1/1.
Feral Gibberer. Yeah. Funnest card in the game. Makes a lot of noise. Not very good if you want to win, but 1 mana 1/1. After this minion attacks a hero, add a copy of it to your hand and annoy your opponent more. That's basically it.
Yep. It's gonna die. Like, the point is, you're not gonna get a lot of 1/1s from it. It's gonna die.
Yeah.
Dragon Hatcher 49. These are like unplayable cards, by the way. We're moving into like Feral Gibbler was like the gateway drug between like really bad cards and totally unplayable cards. We're moving to totally unplayable cards now. Dragon Hatcher. At the end of your turn, recruit a dragon. It's a 9 mana 2/4. You're gonna have like what, like one dragon in your deck on average, maybe two. If you recruit one dragon, it's bad. If you recruit two dragons, it's good. What are the odds you have two dragons in your deck and you still have it by the time this card is played on turn 9?
Right.
Like, so low. Just an insanely bad card. You have to really have a dragon deck. Like, you have to ensure that all the dragons are lined up. And then you have to ensure that you can spend 9 mana and then protect this 2/4 that has no taunt or anything. Like, it's so hard to set up. You get so little out of it.
Yep.
Silver Vanguard, 7 mana 3/3, Death Rattle, recruit an 8-cost minion. This one's being brought down right now by the fact that the system is not really expecting you to have, like, on average, you will not have an 8-cost minion. So, this card could actually be okay if, let's say, you have, like, 2 8-cost minions in your deck. Like, and by okay, I mean still below average, but, like, draftable. But the chances of you having that is so low. Finally,
Basically.
I will leave you the worst card in the worst neutral card in the entire set.
That is Rummaging Kobold, which is 3 mana 1/3. Remember, this is for a neutral class, so the score of this is going to be very different when you actually have a weapon. But it has Battlecry, return one of your destroyed weapons to your hand. Because we're talking about a neutral class here, neutral classes would not have a weapon. So it is a 3 mana 1/3, which understandably is very, very bad.
Yes. So in Warrior, it's an 83, by the way, which is about where like Stone Tusk Boar and Red Mana Worm are.
Yeah.
So that's what it is in a high weapon
A
class.
lot of tempo. Yeah.
I wonder what it is in Paladin. Because Paladins have so many freaking weapons now.
Right.
It's an 80. Close enough. Okay. That's it for all the neutral cards besides legendaries in this meta. And, hope you guys enjoyed it. We realized we didn't do a card-by-card discussion for every card, but the neutral ones are the most important ones. They're the meta-defining ones. And hope you guys enjoyed that. So we'll come back next week and actually talk about classes as we get more experience in this meta. Overall, how would you say, like, let's just end this with overall impressions after like 3 days of playing in this meta?
I'm having fun so far. I like the fact that it does seem sort of vanilla, although
it'll get more vanilla once they fix the offering rates.
Right, but it's like vanilla, and then just a game where like something crazy happens because of some new interaction or some new card. Like Blizzard has definitely introduced ways to sort of really inject some Trollden or highlight moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like someone plays Marin and then they destroy their treasure chest, and then that just creates a ton of chaos, right?
Yep.
There are just definitely ways for the games to have really good comeback mechanics. Priests are priestier than ever these days.
Oh my god, priests.
Yeah, priests are just really disgusting. So I think it's good. I think it's fun. And look, any meta in which hunters have a shot, right? I don't even need them to be top tier. I need them to have a shot. I'm going to be happy with. So it's good. Like everyone out there who's sort of interested, I think, get in the arena, try out the classes that you like, try out the new cards. I think all the classes have like pretty cool sort of new toys to play with. Maybe not Warrior, but they got some cool stuff. So test them out.
All right. Yep. So until next week, that's it from us. This is ADWCTA.
This is Merps. Good luck in the arena, guys.
All right. We are